Welcome to NCBI Labs.
So you're very welcome to this week's live event from the Labs team here at NCBI. Jude Maher here with you for the next hour or so, along with JP Corcoran and Sean Dorn. Daniel Dunn is otherwise engaged for the next few live events, but we're going to have him back with us as soon as we possibly can. Can you believe it? We're actually on our 50th live event today, which is amazing when you look back at all of the content that we've been able to cover throughout the last 18 months. It's incredible that now we're on live event number 50. And we wanted to let you know about a live event special to tie in with that. Now, normally we're on every 2 weeks at the moment, but we've decided to have a live event special next week. So you might want to take note of that. We'll be back for a live event special next Tuesday, 3rd of August. What have we got lined up for you today? Well, one of the pieces that we've been asked about a number of times is the Apple Watch. Just how good is the Apple Watch and how accessible is it? What are the standout features that you might actually want to use day to day? Well, Joe McPhillips will be with us shortly to tell us about that. Later on the show, we're going to have a piece that we haven't done in a little while, actually. We're going to be talking to one of our service users in our latest Seeing It Your Way interview. This time, Breandan Ward is going to be talking to us about his experience of how technology has helped him to deal with some of the effects of sight loss. So we look forward to hearing from Breandan a little bit later in the show. And as well as that, we'll have our tech help a little bit later on as well. Of course, throughout the show, don't forget that we want to hear from you as well. So if there are any questions you'd like answered or technology you'd like us to cover, or any questions throughout our show today as well, you can contact us using the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of Teams, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie. But to start us off this week, we're going to talk through a couple of pieces of tech news. JP, I believe that there's a new voice for Alexa and even an extra wake word as well.
There is indeed, Jude. So Alexa is finally getting a masculine sounding voice option called Shaq and a new wake word called Ziggy. So so many people will consider this a long overdue addition for Amazon's voice assistant from the point of view of gender balance. So we're all used to shouting at Alexa on our Echo smart speakers. So the new voice, as I mentioned, is called Shaq, S-H-A-Q, and it's based on the very well-known basketballer Shaquille O'Neal. Now, unfortunately, it's actually not available in Ireland yet. I tried it on my Amazon Echo this morning and last night, not available yet. But when it is available in Ireland, there's going to be two ways that we can change Alexa's voice. The first way is very straightforward, just to ask Alexa. So we'll be able to switch between two Alexa voice options, the original feminine sounding and the new masculine sounding one, by simply asking Alexa to change your voice. Simple as that. The next option then is to change it in the Alexa app settings, which are to do as follows. We go to devices. So we open up the Alexa app, go to the devices. We select all devices, and then we select the device that we want. And then we select settings. And under general, we select Alexa's voice. And we can select the voice we want from the list. So the original, as I mentioned, is the feminine sounding and the classic voice. And the new one is the masculine sounding voice. It's just been released elsewhere and hopefully will be released in Ireland over the next week or two. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, there's also a new wake word that I've been introduced to. It's Ziggy, so Z-I-G-G-Y. And how we can change Alexa's the wake word from Alexa to Ziggy. Two ways we could do this too. So first is just to ask Alexa. So we can simply ask Alexa to change your wake word, and we go with Ziggy when it comes up on the option list. Again, you'll have to do this on each of the Amazon Echo devices in your home. And the next option then is to change the change the wake word through the app settings themselves. So we can go into devices, and then we can select device settings. Under general, we can select the wake word. We select Ziggy from the list. And there are other options there. Some people will be familiar with them. So we have Alexa, computer, Echo, and Amazon wake words that are available, that have been made available in the last few years. And Ziggy is just the latest one. So it's showing.
So handy to know they're not kind of directly linked then in a way. The wake word isn't, so you're not getting kind of Ziggy for the male voice and Alexa for the female voice.
They're not directly, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd find it could be used for someone perhaps who has multiple Echo devices, and they maybe want one called Alexa, another Ziggy, so they can use different wake words depending on which device they want activated.
Yeah, I was thinking there for a minute, if you talk to Ziggy and the male voice comes out and talk to Alexa and the female voice comes out, it would seem a bit like multiple personality disorder or something going on.
It would be a bit confusing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So good to know that that's not happening. Great, thanks for that, JP. Good
No problem.
to hear that extra bit of news with Alexa. And a little bit closer to home, the digital COVID certificate system has been introduced in Ireland after a bit of a delay to start to implement it. A lot of people would be interested in how workable that is. Sean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I haven't got my cert yet myself, so I haven't checked, but I've heard from other people that the PDF has been sent to their email address. The information is all there. There's only one slight hiccup because it's an automated PDF that the logo at the top isn't labeled correctly and the QR code itself isn't labeled. So when you're going through with a screen reader, you're getting all the details. And then when it comes to the logo, it's an unlabeled graphic. When you come to the QR code, it's an unlabeled graphic. And some people, I believe, are laminating them and bringing them with them in case they ever go to an airport. And then the COVID tracker app is going to be introducing a feature where there's going to be a scanner, so you can take a photograph of your QR code. It'll save it into your COVID tracker app, and if you're ever at the airport and the need to get your QR code for your cert, it's easy to get to it through that. Now, I haven't tried it on that app yet, so I don't know how accessible it is to take the photo, but I'll be interested to try.
Yeah, very good. So handy to know that at least the majority of it is accessible, but just you mentioned there the QR code and the images that are on it aren't labeled.
They're not labeled. So when you're going through it with a screen reader, when you get the QR code sent by email, the PDF, it's reading all the information, and then they're just the two unlabeled graphics is the logo for the HSE and then the QR code itself.
Very good. So that's a useful bit of tech news as well this week, just giving you a bit of an update. It's obviously been these certs are coming out since last week, but it's handy to just get a bit of a sense of how accessible and inclusive they are as well. So thanks very much, JP and Sean. And we're going to move ahead with our show now today, and it's time to talk about the Apple Watch. And Joe McPhillips is joining us to talk about that. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hi, Judith. Hello, all.
Good to have you with us again.
No problem. Nice to be here, and the weather is not so bad. So touch wood, keep it up.
Yeah. We were nearly celebrating with a little bit of cool weather actually at one point there. Yeah, great. Man, now we were kind of thinking for this piece, Joe, that maybe it would be a good idea to get a real-world experience of one of our listeners to tell us about their experience using the Apple Watch without kind of glamming it up too much. Give us the real lowdown on how it works. But I suspect, Joe, that given your support of everything Apple, we're probably not going to hear too much in the way of criticism today.
Well, yeah, I can't say much. Everyone that knows me, even my new nickname is Apple Joe, so that's after coming to light lately. But no, I got into my technology, as you know, Judith, quite a long time ago when I went blind, and I just found Apple's accessibility very good for someone with low vision or complete sight loss, and then I moved into the area of the watch. And this is my second watch, actually. I had an Apple 4 watch, and I upgraded it to the Apple 6 simply because there was extra health benefits from it. Yeah. And I've been delighted with it ever since.
Brilliant. Yeah, very good. So maybe just kind of pare it all back and just tell us what is actually the Apple Watch? What does it do?
Well, the Apple Watch is a device that you can synchronize with all the rest of your Apple products. It can work independently as well. There's two different sizes. There's a 38 millimeter and a 44. It uses the same gestures as you would, well, maybe 99% of the gestures you would use on your Apple iPhone. I found this very easy to install and join my own Apple iPhone, or the settings, should I say, that was on that. And was very clear, very basic, and then from there it tells the time, it does alarms, and then it has an integrated pedometer. It'll do your calories, workouts. It has health benefits. Personally, I think it does. And that's paring it back to the basics, but it would nearly have everything your Apple phone can do and a little more.
Brilliant. Well, that already sounds like it's selling something fairly important and impactful as well. So maybe just kind of give us a bit of an idea then. You talked about it being useful for things like health and fitness then. What do you mean by that? How useful is it?
Yeah. So over the lockdown and stuff and things, I'm a big lad, I'm a big unit, and I just decided to get back into exercise and see what I was doing. And I didn't really like going outside. Well, you weren't allowed to go outside anyway, but I have a small, a cross trainer out the back in the shed out the back, and I was using it on that. But that had all the screens and bits and bobs that you work out your heart rate and your pulses and calories you're burning and et cetera, but none of it talked to me, and none of it could be synchronized to my, say, the iPad or the phone. It just was independent of its own structure, totally relying on people with sight. And I didn't want to be annoying my partner or Jacob, my son. I like the independence. So with the watch, then I found out that, but when I have that on my wrist, it'll ask you like what wrist to put on, et cetera. Put it on the wrist, and then you can set your calorie goals for a week, or and you can go through your calorie goals, your distance, what you've burnt, and it's a great feeling of you're not just exercising, but you're getting the information and the results at your own level. You're not relying on other outside factors for someone to look or read or printouts, and you can track it. And then I've managed to get going outside as well, and it's a very handy partner to maybe having a bit more of a healthy lifestyle. And then when you get into it, you can go see how many calories you can burn against your partner, or as a few of us, one or two lads we know, and we're trying to but do the cross trainer and see who can burn or go the fastest. And it's a bit of crack.
Yeah, absolutely. You were saying a minute ago that you upgraded from the 4 to the 6 at one point. Was there any kind of additional health features with the Apple 6? The Apple Watch 6?
The big difference, I wasn't going to upgrade. I was quite happy with the 4. It was doing its job. But the one big thing, I'm actually asthmatic as well. And with the 6, there was a blood oxygen level reader built into it as well. And because I had a pulsometer, and it's hard enough to get that to work and talk through the phone. With the app wasn't really accessible, and when you're in trouble with asthma and your blood oxygen level is dropping or low, you can get quite paranoid and get quite stuck together. But with having the watch on my hand, it's very easy. It's consistently tracking your blood oxygen. You can set alarms for it to activate if it goes below a certain percentage, but you just tap on it and you set it and you activate it, and it takes 15 seconds, and it'll come back with an accurate blood oxygen level straight away. And you can monitor that, and you can sleep monitor. You leave the watch on all night, and there's several things you can do with it, and it's just peace of mind, really, Jude.
Yeah. So for a lot of these devices, a lot of these smartwatches and things like that, there's obviously the kind of connection with your phone as well. They can work very well together. They can work independently. But to what point does the Apple Watch work independent of your phone? How far does it go with that?
It can work very independently. If you would need it within range if you wanted to make phone calls on it now, straight up. You could have your phone upstairs and just your watch on you downstairs, say, or within about 20 meters, it'll work fairly well. It'll receive calls if you're around, or if you didn't want people to see your phone in your pocket or whatever, it'll ring you. You can answer your phone, but then your call would be audible. But after that, you get your notifications. etc., etc. But if you're out walking, exercising, your heart rate, your ECG, all that's independent of the phone. So you can leave your phone at home. You're out. You're going. You can get your Google Maps. You can do your walking directions. It's all independent. It has its kind of whatever, the satellite connection, or GPS, or its own independent stuff. But it'll belt away on its own, So
yeah, very good. Yeah, and I think that can be quite an attractive feature for a lot of people as well, is to be able to have it work quite independently.
Yeah, and it has several other features, but the other one is I like it for NFC, the near field communication, paying for stuff. At the shop or Tesco. You're not fumbling for your phone. There's no one really looking at you. You just put it up, bang, there you go.
Is that the Apple Pay system, is it? Is that
the Apple Pay, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
That
works. You found it works well?
With the Irish banks as well, yeah. So I've mine set up with Allied Irish Bank. God bless. Anyone who wants to be bills now, they can have them. But it works very well, very handy. Does its job, and with being blind as well, you don't have to carry excess money in your wallet. It's there. You pay for it. You walk out, and you don't have cash on you. It's handy. It does its job.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really good. And in terms of verifying a payment, how does that happen? How does that work? So let's say you've got your watch with you, but you don't have your card with you, and you're thinking, okay, this is nice and simple. I'm going to pay for something with this. Yeah.
There's two ways you can do it, but when you go through the app and you're setting it up through the app on your phone, you can have a choice to type in a code, and then the code that's with the phone, or you can get the Allied Irish Bank to send a code, a 6-digit code, and they'll send you, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can clarify your payment with that, or you can do the payment with the code that's registered with your phone, and that's a 4-digit code, a simple code. And then you'll ask for them, and then when you've clarified that, you just double click the crown, the little side of it, and you're paid for. Your product
Brilliant.
paid for.
Yeah, nice and simple, nice and straightforward. It's amazing, isn't it? Actually, what you can do with these things.
The generation of tap or click or whatever you want to call it and pay. I don't know. I think I'd rather hold real money, but you can't get too carried away because there is a limit, or 50 quid or whatever it is. So, but it's very handy. I like it for kind of security. Not having wallet or cash on me, I can go to the shop, I have a watch on or whatever, but that's it, It's
very useful. Yeah, although I think if they are looking to add new features to it, what you said a minute ago would be a great one. If you could just, deposit your bills to somebody else, just as your near bill communication, you just deposit your bills elsewhere as you're walking along.
Oh, yeah,
brilliant.
That's lovely, that.
Yeah.
That's great.
If anybody's listening from Apple, that's what we want next, yeah.
Oh, well, I tell you, Apple, they'll give you plenty of bills. I don't know if they'll pay you for them.
Yeah, I'm sure you're by the sounds of it, you're pretty happy to pay the bills for it now. By the sounds of it,
I tell you, it was introduced to me at the start, Jude, by a woman that works with the guide dogs. It was literally the first time I touched the phone, and I had an alphanumeric keypad on a Nokia, and that was working, and I had talks on that, and I was doing my best. But everybody was going touchscreen, and any kind of a phone you wanted, everything was touchscreen. I was like, God, I'm just going to have to make this jump. And I remember touching the first iPhone I did touch, and it was just like touching a sheet of glass. And I was like, this is going to take me long. But once I got to grips with it and started learning the basic gestures, and then it's one day after another, it's like anything, one step in front of the other. And then I think after that I got the first iPod because you helped me with that, sir, Jude, way back in the day.
That's
crossing over all my music and different things.
Yeah.
And then I was impressed, just the ease of use. And I know they are pricey, but I can't comment on Android or other watches that people can guess. But I just find the voiceover so easy. Yeah. It's intuitive, and it does what it says in the tin. So
Yeah. And in fairness, I think a lot of people are quite happy with it as well. So it's not just yourself saying that. You mentioned there a minute ago just obviously the idea of when you had your first iPhone and trying to work through the gestures and pick it all up that way. But you also said that when you got the Apple Watch, that's kind of a lot of the gestures and things like that are pretty much exactly the same. Are we talking pretty much the same accessibility features on the Apple Watch as there are on the iPhone?
There will be, yeah. It's very, very same. There's one or two two-finger double tap gestures that are a little different, and then that's about it. You have the rotor is there, your thumb and forefinger for the rotor, and all your different settings, volume, words, characters, and you can edit those as well. It's very similar. Swipe left, swipe right, single finger double tap. It's very, very, very similar. Very similar.
Brilliant.
And you can reset the watch. You can do pretty much anything with the phone you can do with the watch. And then like when you go into the Apple Watch app, which is on your phone, that'd be like the motherboard. And then all your settings and stuff is there. And if you want to edit anything that's on the watch, you can do it through your phone app, and then it'll change on the watch. So you can't. I wouldn't be afraid of touching the watch or flicking around, because you're not going to screw it up. Like it's the phone is the main one that saves everything and the updates, etc., etc.
Yes.
You can't go back. Even today, I was just fooling with it, and I changed the setting of the watch from a grid to a list. And it's after alphabetizing the whole watch, and I love it. That's a lot better, because I was scrambling all over the place and up and down and left and right. So then I started feeling that, and I was able to change it to list. So
brilliant, yeah, very good.
Handy, and then you can edit it and take off apps, put on apps,
Yeah, that kind of ties in with what I was kind of thinking of as well. Just the setup of the Apple Watch. Is it fairly straightforward to set up then? If you're kind of thinking, I'm not big into all this sort of stuff if it's coming out of the box.
Not big into tech or not. I found this, again, this is not my Apple head on now, but I found it very easy. I got the 4. It was actually a Christmas present from a few people. They all clubbed together and got it for me. But so I got it, put it on my wrist. I was conscious enough, brand new territory for me. And I knew that you press the crown of the watch, like where the timer is, the timing thing. Yeah. So you press that 3 times, bang, 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 voiceover comes on. It'll find your phone, and both of them will talk to you. They'll be like, press this or next or whatever. And then one of the last things you'll do is hold your phone in front of the watch on your wrist. It scans it or looks at it or whatever it does, and then it says, your phone is now synchronizing with your watch, and it's the exact same as, upgrading what you do when you're upgrading a phone. They just talk to each other. Away you go. You give it an hour or whatever length of time it takes, and all your details from your phone are gone to your watch. Now you might have to clarify a few passwords and etc., like with banks and other subscription services that you may not have. And then it has Bluetooth. You join your headphones. It's pretty handy.
Very good. It does sound fairly straightforward.
I wouldn't be afraid to recommend it to anyone that has complete sight loss or low vision. And also, I have actually recommended it to other people that would be in the blind community, and strictly because of its health benefits. With the ECG, the heart rate, and the blood oxygen. Now there's more, like there's your activity app and exercises. But with the people I've recommended it, they're absolutely delighted. It's just easy access, and it calms down your mind, for want of better words. You're not panicking. Is my oxygen okay? It's a peace of mind. And I know it's a dear piece of change. I think they're retailing about €450.
Okay,
it is a lot of money.
And where would you get one from? Where would you?
Yeah, I I'm kind of old school that way, Jude. I went to Harvey Norman's and bought mine, and because I like the touch, the feel. I have bought stuff through Apple Store, but mainly that's DB cables, USB-C, Lightning, both things, because I like what they do, and you can get cheaper cables, but I find that they could go on fire in a second. Like some charger. I had other stuff got, but that's diverting from the topic. But the watch I got in Harvey Norman's, and I bought all my hardware, say, in Harvey Norman's, and then if I was getting cables or plugs or whatever, I'd buy them through the Apple Store. All right.
Yeah, very good. And the way that, like with most of these things, you're going to get a list of specs, and they'll be telling you things like how long the battery lasts, and you're always a little bit kind of thinking, I wonder how long it lasts actually in real life conditions. How long does the battery tend to last for you?
I'd say, working and using it as normal, I'd say 40 hours, 45 hours from charge to charge, and that'd be keeping it on your wrist, taking phone calls, doing exercise, general use now. But if you're on it now and playing books and all, it'll obviously cut it to nothing. And you're using your headphones. So I'd say maybe 24 hours if you're flat out using it, going to work and headphones in, and for an hour or two. That kind of life. But I've never used this in that high capacity. But,
so probably like as a rough thing, you'd be talking like one day.
Surgery, and I didn't have the charging puck with me, and I got a good 2 days out before it even died. And I was using it normal. So
I suppose kind of as a rough thing, if you're going to use it really, really intensely, you get a day out of it. If it's kind of fairly normal use, you probably get 2 days out of it, and if you're using it pretty lightly, you'll get even longer.
Yeah, that's the way I put it down.
Yeah, very good.
That's what
very good. Well, it sounds like your overall kind of assessment of it, I guess, would be definitely that it's a bit of a success. Do you know what? Hang on for a second with us, Joe. We might bring in Sean and JP just for a moment. Do either of you use any kind of wearables that are out there at the moment? Do you have an Apple Watch, or do you have something different? Or
I have a smartwatch. It's called a TechWatch Pro, so it's an Android watch. It has some similar features, but probably not as many as the Apple Watch that we're talking about here. Like I have heart rate monitors, and there is TalkBack on it. Not all the apps work as well with TalkBack. I don't think they're as strict currently as Apple would be. If it's on it, it's accessible. But it's quite useful, and a lot of the information does get sent back to my phone on apps also.
And I guess with some of the Android things, as usual with Android, there'll be some elements where you might not be paying for the Apple name either, to some extent.
So sometimes it can be like slightly cheaper, but like in terms of accessibility, like it's called Wear OS is what their operating system's called. And that in itself would be fine. It's just if you download an app that's on Wear OS, it might not be as accessible as it would be on the phone, because they haven't built in full. It's not in every case, but it's worth noting that they haven't got as broad a scope on the accessibility as the Apple Watch.
That's an interesting one. All right, very good. JP, do you use much in the way of wearables?
I use a Fitbit, smart wearables. So it's a Fitbit Versa, it's called. Fitbit have become very popular smart wearables in the last few years. I mean, the price is a bit more, a bit more affordable than most Apple Watches. But now, bearing in mind that the accessibility features on those devices wouldn't be, there wouldn't be anything like what you have on the Apple Watch. They have become very popular, so it does give you information like on like health stats, for example, like steps taken, heart rate, sleep patterns. It does give you blood O2 levels as well. Actually, as a recent update. The watch itself has been around. A Fitbit watch has been around, I think, 5 years. I think it was 2014. But the latest versions of the watch, so you have the Fitbit, for example, Versa 2 and 3, and the Fitbit Sense that have been released in the last year. They actually have Alexa and Google Assistant built in. So, for example, my Fitbit Versa, I can long press as a side button on the watch to activate Alexa. And when I do this, it basically gives me some suggestions and things I can say, like, set a timer for 20 minutes or set my alarm for 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, or add things to my shopping list. So I can use it then with my Amazon Echo Smart Speaker quite well. Other features I kind of like is Fitbit Pay. So Joe mentioned the Apple Pay a moment ago. There's Fitbit Pay, which is the equivalent on the Fitbit. So really handy, I find, if you're out and about, you don't have your wallet or your card with you, just tap your phone, tap your watch rather, instead of using a wallet, your card or your phone. And then there's also the option, for example, there's apps that you can download from the Fitbit App Store, such as the Find My Phone app. So it'll actually play a sound on your phone to help locate it when it's lost. Like Fitbit are big into like kind of health stats and so on. So they'll send you a weekly progress report, steps taken, distance covered, floors walked, and that kind of thing. They even send you like badges. So for example, if you've walked the equivalent of the Nile or some kind of big landmark, it'll tell you that every so often. But as I mentioned, no accessibility features that are built into the watch itself. It is possible to access the data though through a Fitbit smartphone app, which is available on iOS and Android. And I have actually just checked it out with VoiceOver. It seems to be quite accessible. And there's also a Fitbit skill we're pointing out for the Amazon Echo, which you can use to track your health stats, even asking things like asking Alexa, for example, like your daily step count, how long you've slept, heart rate, and that kind of thing. Another bit of information as well, and the Fitbit actually people might be interested to hear about, is that it's actually worth noting that Google actually bought Fitbit earlier this year, I think $2 billion. So I think what'll be interesting is to see, is this acquisition going to mean we'll have some accessibility features built in to Fitbit watches in the future, which would be great, to have some talkback or some magnification features that would have on Android devices available on a Fitbit. I think it would certainly appeal to much more people.
That's an interesting one as well. Yeah, so there's definitely options out there. I kind of get the impression, Joe, that none of these are going to be changing your mind or turning your head away from Apple too much.
All I can say is that they're both heathens.
I knew it. Doesn't matter how good the alternatives are. This is what you
going back to the Apple Watch as well. Yeah, it has the Siri function as well. You just press the crown and you can ask it things, and you're the same as what JP was saying about steps, counters, what I've done, what I haven't done, have I moved enough today, what's my percentages for today, and you can set it to. It'll even work now, and it's a different branch again. But if you're in a wheelchair, and you can set it that you're actually in a wheelchair, and it'll rejig the health and fitness things for your movement and levels and exercises and
very
there's
interesting.
a lot of kind of. I like the way accessibility. I wouldn't say is that pardon the pun, is at the core of the Apple product, but. For ease of access.
Did you work on that, Joe? Did you work on that pun beforehand?
Yeah.
That it's at the core of the app.
Well, shoot me now. I don't know. But no, I love it works and it does its job. And like I never got around to using the Android or the Fitbit.
Yeah.
But a cousin of mine has, I think, she has a Fitbit or someone has a Fitbit, and I had to play around with it. And this is before I bought the 4. And the app wasn't really working succinctly, and it was a bit clunky, would be the word. Now that's 5 years ago, I'd say. 5 years ago when the 4 came out. So that kind of made up my mind. Like, I'm not Apple pure. Like, I don't fire money out around the place. But for ease of connectivity and the way it just, I don't know, they just work together. And I know it's pricey, but all the stuff that works, and instead of buying things independently in bits and bobs, is kind of just all there.
Yeah, and I suppose with these things, it's kind of just handy to know about the alternatives. There are some good alternatives, but it's what works for you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And Joe, isn't it possible now, I believe, to unlock your iPhone using your Apple Watch?
You can do that too. Yeah.
Update.
Yeah. I can. I just going back to it as well. If I left down my phone and even my ear pods, but I knew where my watch was, I can ping any of them as well, just to find them. That they'll both set off sound, and kind of get you to the area where they are.
Excellent.
And all that
Very good. Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's a good kind of an overview of what the Apple Watch can do, and also in real life sort of settings. So we really appreciate you coming on the show today, Joe. That was a really good overview and very informative. Thanks very much for joining us.
Oh yeah, just one other thing. The strap.
Yeah.
The strap itself is a silicone strap, and if you don't like the silicone, you can chop and change. The straps come in and out, very easy to change, and you can buy them online. They're not the Apple ones, but I got a lovely leather strap, and it doesn't look like a health accessory. Then it's more kind of smart casual.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I believe it looks well as well. So there's plenty of options out there, and whatever.
For the fashion conscious. Yeah. Excellent.
Oh, well, if you could see me, you'd know I wasn't fashion conscious.
Joe, it's been a pleasure to talk to you as
No
always.
problem,
Thanks for joining
gentlemen.
us again. Cheers.
I'll
Very
probably
good.
stay with you for the time being, innit?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So that was Joe McPhillips, and he's going to be listening in for the rest of the show as well. But our thanks to Joe for joining us there and giving us that good overview of the Apple Watch. And as we heard, there's other options as well. So it's kind of always good to know what options are out there. But certainly it's one that does its job very well. So we're going to move in to the next part of our show now. And as we said earlier, we haven't done one of our Seeing It Your Way pieces for a little while. So today I caught up with Breandan Ward, and you might recognize Breandan from one of our previous live events. He's been interviewed separately by NCBI as well, but this time we were talking a little bit more about the kind of technology point of view. So we hope you enjoy this week's Seeing It Your Way with Breandan Ward. So we're delighted this week to have with us Breandan Ward for our Seeing It Your Way piece. You're very welcome to the show, Breandan.
Hello, Jude. Lovely to join you.
Great to have you with us. And I believe you've done a few different things with NCBI since the lockdown. You've been involved in a few pieces for our shows.
Yes, and we've been lucky, I suppose, with all the challenges of lockdown. There has been some benefits, and one of them is for all of us service users of NCBI having access to the new technology clubs that happen regularly on Microsoft Teams, and generally being able to connect together online. And that's been a great way to share our individual journeys and stories and advice for each other. So I've done a few interviews with June and with JP more recently on Revolut. We were talking in the live event a few weeks ago about how accessible Revolut is. And I suppose it's given us the opportunity to slow down our busy lives and take stock of what we've got from a technology standpoint in terms of support, and the fact that there's been huge change and improvement in terms of accessibility across the board. Doesn't mean everything's perfect, but I suppose it's been a real boon for us in the last year or so, having the chance on these platforms to discuss with each other what's the latest and greatest technology and how we're actually using it. Because I suppose there's a huge difference between seeing something on an ad or someone telling us about it and then actually getting into the trenches as someone with an experience of sight loss or visual impairment.
Absolutely,
and actually using these tools and seeing, do they work, and going through an often messy process of trial and error, and then discovering that many of them are working really well.
Yeah, in some ways, I suppose the last year, 18 months is almost like a bit of a stress test for some of these the accessibility of some technology, isn't it?
It is. It is, and there's nothing can beat the user experience, and I suppose this is what many companies struggle with. There's a design team sitting somewhere in the guts of a company, and they're busy coming up with all these flashy new apps or flashy new websites or whatever it might be, flashy new products. And sadly, all too often, they're not inclusive. So they forget about the needs of people with visual impairment, or they forget about people with mobility issues or hearing impairments and the like, So it's really down to us to go out there as, I suppose, crusaders and try these products and use them and then share the stories. And what's lovely about in particular about the tech club that they've been popping up all around the country through the NCBI. That's actually a great place for us to come back and report on how we're getting on as service users of technology, and then the NCBI Labs team helps us, make sense of our experience and join the dots, if you like, and also bring us up to date on new developments as they emerge.
It's great actually just to have that line of communication as well, because it does, as you say, it allows people to kind of have their voice heard as well in terms of feeding back to NCBI, but also having that kind of the local tech clubs are a great way to keep up to date with things. I think people probably might at this point, as you say, you've been on a couple of events, they might recognise your voice even, but for anybody who doesn't know too much about you, Breandan, can you tell us just maybe a bit about your background?
Sure. I was brought up on a dairy farm in County Monaghan, and of course Monaghan has many things going for it, including an excellent football team, so watch out Dublin, or watch out all the teams in between now and the final. So
you heard it here. Yeah.
Needless to say, I know very little about football, so I'm ashamed to say I'm not a credible source of information, but I can talk to you about music and other things. So I went to UCD and studied commerce and French, and went to London for the summer. And that summer, I guess, it turned into 20 years. So I started out with a summer internship at a bank in London, and that became permanent. And I ended up working in London for 10 more years. And it was during that time that I started to have problems with my eyesight. And I suppose that's where technology comes in a big way, because I went from loving technology and always being curious about the latest, the latest upgrades of Windows and the like. I loved all that stuff and was interested.
Yeah.
And then it went from being a love to a hate relationship. I hated technology because it was one of the first confrontations I had with struggle.
Yeah.
Something that I really loved and enjoyed became a real hassle, and starting to have difficulty seeing the computer at work. And of course, like many of our jobs these days, you have to be able to use a computer. And if you start to struggle in that you can't really see your emails as well as you could, and you're pulling the screen closer to you and all this carry on, you start to hate the thing that you once upon a time really loved. So it was during that, I suppose, confrontation is the best word, that displacement, that stumbling stone that I tripped over, that I started to need help from a practical standpoint. I mean, I needed to figure out what this was and how to come to terms with it, which was a genetic condition, degenerative eye condition that we have. My brother and I both have the same condition, and luckily the other three siblings got off scot-free. So the least they can do is, do everything we ask them to. That's the punishment they get.
At least you're not taking that too far. I mean, you're only asking them to do everything you're asking them for.
More or less everything, Yeah. And I think we can come back to the technology and the work side of things, but for now I'll say that I took some time out, took a leave of absence. I was in London, so I went to the RNIB, who were helping me in a similar way to the NCBI would around technology support, and I got accommodations in the office. And once I was able to say to myself, look, you're losing your sight, that's reality, and kind of start that very slow journey of moving from denial and bargaining into acceptance, the classic kind of grief cycle. I kind of got over that hump quickly enough and realized all I need is Zoom text, all I need is a CCTV, and once I get those two things, I can get back in the saddle. And I pretty much got back to work, picked up where I left off, and eventually then moved to the US. So I got a transfer with my employer across to the US, and I quite liked the challenge of it, like my sight continuing to slowly deteriorate. But I thought to myself, part of this journey of disability is that you mightn't try these things if you could see perfectly. And then when the game of cards you're playing changes and you get dealt some dodgy cards, you start to say to yourself, well, why not? Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
I suppose disability gives you that, in some ways, freedom. Eventually, is freedom to say, well, why not? Because you kind of get through this life-changing experience, and then you realize, well, hang on, maybe there's an invitation here to try things that I otherwise mightn't try.
It's an interesting perspective, yeah, just to kind of really take it on then. I suppose if you're kind of having to overcome some barriers, and it's kind of nearly obligatory in some ways, does it feel almost like it's like getting a taste for overcoming barriers in a way?
Yeah, I think you're right, dude. I think you're right, because you feel like many of the folks, like my blind and visually impaired colleagues, for example. So I joined the Dublin Tech Club, even though I'm kind of 1 foot in Ireland, 1 foot in London still, so I'm over and back.
Yeah.
But, you know, I joined the Tech Club in Dublin, and, you know, in that call I've met loads of people who are very similar in that we have a gentleman who at the age of 87 is now producing his own podcasts and has made a real big splash in the media, and is doing great work there. And he's just one, Brian, he's just one example of a whole slew of people that are. There's Martin, who's involved in the Sightless Cinema. You know, just 2 examples. There's Laura, who's doing recording of her own music and writing a book. You know, so there's so many people that are. We're almost, you know, sort of inspiring each other, egging each other on. And I suppose when I was back a few years ago deciding about the US, I decided to go for it. And it also gave me experience of that culture and how disability is huge. And it kind of nudged me on to the next part of my work, which is to leave banking altogether and focus my effort on disability as a topic, you know, because before it was kind of incidental. I was somewhat the poster boy for diversity because there's a blind guy in senior management. So that means we ticked the box, and I didn't like it because I thought, no, I'm not going to be that poster boy. Thank you very much. There's a lot more to inclusion than just having one blind guy in a position. So I left that and went back to school, and that was another, I suppose, confrontation, because I was afraid of that. How do you sit in lectures, and how do you do exams and papers and all this? And I learned a lot in that. I did a master's in New York University, and then it led to developing a course on disability and teaching it at the same university, which I've been doing part-time, and then getting involved in academia and I suppose other things around disability advocacy and advisory work with some organizations, and trying to bridge the gap from talk is cheap to how do we actually do things. And that's where I'm focusing a lot of my time now, in education and in employment. We've actually set up in the last 6 months something here in Ireland, the Working Age Forum, and we have our meeting coming up, our 3rd meeting tonight, Tuesday the 27th, and we've had a great uptake of that, where people are coming from around the country on Zoom. So again, something that's possible to do thanks to the virtual environment, and we're sharing stories of employment. And funnily enough, technology comes up all the time, because it's one of the key enablers or disablers, depending what way we approach it and our employers approach it. So I would say in that short story of me, I think technology has been one of the big levers that have helped me to get from those days of struggle. And I suppose we all have days of struggle, so it never goes away, but it's helped me go from this sort of dead end feeling to one where I feel not only is the technology that can help us get back on our feet, but actually we can help the mainstream society to get more inclusive. Because, you know, Revolut is a good example of that recently, where I was able to show my friends an app that they'd never heard of, but I only knew it because it was so well designed for the blind, you know. So Google and Alexa are other two examples where they're hugely helpful for people who are blind, and they're like a godsend for me, and people in the tech club swear by them. And lo and behold, spreading like wildfire around our family, So it's actually turning the tables. Technology is actually something that we can be advocates for.
Yeah. And it's brilliant when there are some of these kind of mainstream things that it's built in right from the start. It's not, it doesn't have to be some add-on. It's actually something where you've got full functionality straight away, in terms of how accessible it is.
Right. And it makes business sense because the value of the global market, or what, let's call it the purple euro, you could call it the purple pound or the purple dollar, which is the size of the market globally of people who either have a disability themselves or their family and friends who support them. That market is worth $8 trillion.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It's huge.
Yeah.
So companies, rather, as you say, add-on isn't the way forward. It actually doesn't make commercial sense because you're missing a huge market. Because frankly, if I download an app, so I downloaded an app recently for this convenience shopping service in London, and I was just curious to see if it was accessible. I wasn't really inclined to use it because I have my own setup for groceries and that, but I was curious to see. Sure enough, big brand new app. It's plastered all over the London buses, plastered all over everywhere. Guess what? It's not accessible to VoiceOver on the iPhone.
Oh man!
So there is I can guarantee you, no blind or visually impaired person in the Greater London area using this app because the company in question kind of forgot.
Yeah.
So they're missing that share of the market.
Absolutely. I get the sense a little bit just chatting to you, Breandan, that your kind of relationship with technology has changed over the years, but where you've ended up is sort of similar to where you started out, in that I think you were saying you loved technology, then you hated technology because it was maybe the first confrontation. It sounds like instead of necessarily loving it as a thing that's, a pastime or something that's just intriguing, you've got a bit of passion for it at this stage, in terms of you're kind of passionate about its use for accessibility.
Yeah, it sounds like a classic family Christmas. You go into it with lots of feelings of love and excitement. By the time you're halfway through it, you're hating. And then after it's over, you think, oh, well, I just couldn't do without it. So that's what I hear. Of course, it's not my experience at all.
Of course,
true. It is true. I would say for all of us participating in the event and listening in today, there's no doubt that sight loss, whether you're blind from birth or you're visually impaired from birth, or you have, like in my case, some degenerative eye condition, so sight loss that comes later in life, or you might be older, you might have cataracts, glaucoma, whatever in later life. I think there's definitely a hill we need to climb. Like there's no way to say that, oh, you'll be grand, you'll figure it out. It's definitely a hill that has to be climbed, and it is a struggle. And I think if there was one thing I would bring on board to help get up that hill with less struggle rather than more, the thing I would recommend is technology, because it's not easy peasy. It does take some effort, like anything that you're trying to get practiced at. It does take some effort, but the benefits in terms of connecting you to other people, connecting you to independence, improving your sense of self, and sort of getting up that hill with less rather than more struggle. I'd say technology is definitely something to bring in. And
absolutely,
I would two things. I was thinking about this earlier just in preparation. There were two things from my perspective I would recommend without any question. That's regardless of what age you are, what circumstances you're in. One of them is get a smart speaker, because it can be intimidating to sit down at a computer and you mightn't be ready for the adaptive technology or JAWS or Zoomtext or what have you. That can be hard. But what's easy to get started with is a smart speaker, because you don't need to look at anything. You just need to talk. And, you know, for so many people, that is accessible and that is doable. And whether it's the Alexa from Amazon or Google or the Apple version of these smart speakers, just go and get one. And if you have a birthday coming up or Christmas and people are asking you what would you like, just get them to get you one of these, because you can get help to get it set up pretty quickly, and all of a sudden you're reconnected with the internet and you don't need a computer screen. So I would say get a smart speaker, because I just don't know myself since I got one of these. It just connects you with the weather, the football results if you're following the football. It connects you with Wikipedia. You can ask it any question about history, or if you're doing crosswords with the family, you can ask Google and it'll tell you some answers, even if you can't fill in the crossword. You can participate, you know. You can be involved. So much more. That's one, I would say. Get a smart speaker.
I'd say, and the smart speaker, one of the great things with it as well, for people who are worried about technology, that, you know, on a computer, I might press something that'll damage it, or I might do something that'll mess it all up. If the smart speaker can't do what you're asking it to do, it'll just tell you, and then just ask it something else, and or ask what you can do on it. It's very simple, isn't it? Very straightforward.
Well, I've been asking this, we've all been asking here, will Monaghan win the All-Ireland final? So Google...
And what does the smart speaker say about that?
Well, for some reason, Google can't quite figure that one out. I don't know why. I think someone in Dublin has it programmed that way, Jude. I'm not
it must be conspiracy.
But, I suppose the other thing I would recommend, and this is plugging the NCBI Tech Club, so they're all around the country. So I'm lucky to join the Dublin one. They're all around the country, and that's the place where you get to meet people just like yourself. Some of them are slightly ahead on the journey, some of them are slightly behind, and what's great about it is you learn a lot from each other, and you learn a lot from the NCBI labs. So folks, so in Dublin we have Joe Lonergan and JP Corcoran, and we learn so much from them. And the two guys are not sitting in an ivory tower preaching to us, having read a book about blindness. They know the story. They use these apps. They're on the same path as we are. So they know what they're talking about. And the sense of camaraderie and sharing of knowledge and support is, you know, that's such a valuable resource for people. So even if you want to join it and just listen in and you have nothing really to say yet about technology, I would recommend reaching out to your community resource worker, find where your nearest tech club is and join it. And they're running often once a week, and it's a great resource to have, because, you know, in the end, that's going to be the key to finding out other technologies that work for you and discuss it with other people, you know, because I have stuff that I use that works for me, and a lot of that's informed by discussions in these groups. So I think that's a great gateway into regular contact on the topic of technology and regular advice and regular support.
Yeah, very good. And tell us just, what does the future hold for you? Because I know that you've got quite a bit going on in terms of sort of the projects that you mentioned there earlier. So what's kind of involved for you at the moment? You're in Ireland at the moment. You're heading back to London in a few weeks. Is that it?
That's it. So, Corona permitting, I've been over and back. So, I'm working on whether there's some new courses coming up at Imperial College in London that I've been helping out with. So that's around that same topic of how do we get disability from the sideshow? You know, how do we get it from the sideline into the centre of the arena? And my argument in this, and it's the same with companies, so we've got a few events coming up where I'm doing keynote speaker events and panel events and stuff, workshops. it's you have to be very careful how you say this, because you don't want to go in with your white cane and sort of batter it around and create thoughts that make everyone nervous.
Yeah.
People seem in organizations quite unsure of how to talk about disability and how to cover it under this inclusion and diversity lens that we have now in many of our companies. And a lot of places are afraid about using the wrong language, how to talk about it, etc. And what I'm delicately trying to convey in these projects, this work I'm doing, is, folks, if you think disability is something that only us blind people have to worry about, forget it. Because if you think about disability as the loss of function, then guess what? We are all going to be disabled one day, and some of it, much of it, not by choice. So, I think there's some degree of denial in that. I think there's a reason why disability is hard to talk about in companies and organizations, because if we don't talk about it, maybe it doesn't exist, and maybe we can get away with ever having to confront this reality. So I think actually as people with disabilities, it's actually our job to educate our able-bodied compatriots and colleagues, not in a condescending way, but to say, hey guys, we're actually not different at all. It's just there happens to be a medical term for what I've got. But guess what? We're all going to get something, and actually that's a design feature of light. It's not a flaw. It's a feature of the life.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, kind of tying in with just what you were saying there, like obviously it's great when people have enough of a sort of empathetic element where they're trying to understand it, or maybe they've been educated to understand some of those things, but being able to actually share real experience of what's happened is always going to be more enlightening, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And personally, I'm really keen to get disability into the curriculum, particularly in higher education. So I really believe that disability should be covered as a matter of course in a lot more degrees and a lot more universities, because really, when you think about what education is all about, isn't it preparing us for the real world? So, whether it's in companies where we're going to be salespeople or accountants or people in marketing or technology, whatever our calling might be, whether we're a carpenter or a farmer or a teacher in religious life or whatever, the real world has disability in it. So therefore, why isn't it on the curriculum? So that's kind of one of the upstream places where I'm doing some projects and working with universities to get it into the curriculum, even in a small way. Just get it onto the curriculum and let's start talking about it, and let's start figuring out what are the practical skills we need, so that when we do arrive into our careers, that we do know what to say when a member of staff has some issue, whether it's a health condition, could be temporary, could be permanent, or some disability situation. And that's kind of one of the big themes of my work. And then I suppose flowing on down from that is figuring out, when you are in the companies and you're dealing with what you have today, good, bad, or indifferent, like how can we start to build disability into the mindset?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's been great talking to you. It's been fascinating just hearing some of your experience and what you're involved in at the moment. We really appreciate you coming on to the show today. So thank you very much for joining us, Breandan. We'll maybe talk to you again sometime.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Jude.
So that was Breandan Ward, and that was really enjoyable, actually, that interview. Really good to talk to Breandan. Interesting to hear what's happening with him. But now, just to finish us out this week, we've got our tech help section, and Sean is going to be helping us with our tech help section. What can you tell us about the reader mode on Chrome, Sean?
Hi, Jude. So yeah, much like the Edge browsers and Firefox, which has an inbuilt reader, Chrome are going to be adding one also. So it's in like a development stage, where Chrome has a development stage, like it's called flags, and you can go into there and turn on and off special features that aren't fully tested, aren't fully implemented yet. I don't always recommend that you do that, but that's like you can access it through Chrome flags, and that's where they hide all. Like dark mode was in there about 8 months before dark mode was released officially. That's their testing ground, and you can be tested early too. But what Reader does is, it can strip down a web page, make it cleaner, remove like adverts, and you're more or less just left with text, and it can read it more easily. So someone with low vision, that's very, very useful for. And someone who uses a screen reader, it might not be useful, because in theory it sounds like that would make it, the screen's only going to get text, but it could end up removing some heading structures or some accessibility, because it's really stripping back the web page. As these things go on, if people recommended to developers, like reading mode's a great idea, but you should also guarantee that all accessibility is also added to it, so it's not just a visual cleanup. But currently that might not be the case. So while someone with low vision or maybe dyslexia, or there's multiple reasons why people would have some people cognitive issues, there's multiple reasons why we'd have a reader on a web page. Like I said, the screen reader is normally not going to read the page anyway, so it's not always relevant. But if it did tidy up the page, that made it even easier for screen reader to read, brilliant. But it's just not at that stage yet.
Yeah, perfect. So it's good for us to know that as well, and to be aware of that pitfall, because if you're going to use an accessibility feature, the last thing you want is to make it less accessible in certain circumstances. So
definitely, in terms of like someone with low vision, or maybe struggling to see things clearly, it's ideal for them.
Yeah, very good. Well, thanks for helping us with that this week. So that's Reader Mode on Chrome, and appreciate that, Sean.
No worries.
Very good. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's show. Just a reminder again, of course, that if you need technology assistance, you can get support from the Labs team from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday on 1850 92 30 60, or you can email labs@ncbi.ie. Or if you want to avail of wider NCBI services, you can call 1850 33 43 53 or email info@ncbi.ie. Of course, we always appreciate your support of NCBI, and if you'd like to make a donation to help support our services, you can do that through donate.ncbi.ie. And a reminder as well about our Smart Hub project, which we had an update of on our last live event. That's progressing well, but if you want to help out with the testing, and again, we mentioned in our previous live event, that's not anything you need any big kind of professional qualifications to be able to help with the testing, just everyday testing. If you'd like to help out, please do let us know by emailing smarthub@ncbi.ie. Just before we go, just a reminder of what will be taking place in our future live events. We actually will be talking to our colleagues in RNIB about technology in one of our future live events. We'll also be revisiting Site Tech Global, which we were hoping to have on today, but we just had a delay with that. So we'll be revisiting that subject in one of our future live events. But also a reminder, as we mentioned earlier, that we're going to have a special live event next week. It's going to be a release in Ireland of a piece of software, an app that we spoke about a number of months ago on our live events, one that we've been quite excited about as well. Microsoft have announced the release of Soundscape in Ireland to be launched next Tuesday. So that will be great to talk about that, to spend a little bit of extra time on our live event next week to talk about Microsoft Soundscape. So that's next Tuesday, and at the usual time of 2:30. If you want to stay up to date with what's happening on our live events, as well as plenty more, you can subscribe to our newsletter on our website, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie if you'd like to do that as well. So all that's left for me to do today is to thank our guests, Joe McPhillips and Breandan Ward, and of course thanks to everyone listening in as well. And from Sean, JP and myself, goodbye for now, and we look forward to having you all back with us soon for another NCBI Labs live event.